This video is proudly sponsored by Gamersgate. Download games anytime, anywhere. Visit Gamersgate.com.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Elder Geeks Game Club. This is episode number 33, Colorblind. My name is Steve, and with me as always is Phil. Phil, how you doing this evening?
I am very tired this evening.
Very tired.
But I'm here for the game club.
I can relate. I'm glad to have you here. And also with us as always is Mr. Randy. Randy, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. Game Club is like my palate cleanser podcast, and I hope it's everybody else's palate cleanser podcast as well.
It's certainly mine too. Or it's more of like a master cleanse, like a like I drank a big lemonade full of paprika and cleaned myself out kind of podcast.
For me, it's more like an enema.
That's kind of what Master Cleanse is, except that you start at the top of the intestine, work your way down, as opposed to going up,
Very good.
the other
It's
way.
more for me. It's more like a butt chug.
Oh Jesus! I can't believe that's a thing. Oh my God!
I actually don't know what it is. I'm kind of glad that I don't too.
It's that big. What school is it, Steve? That
I don't.
Big,
One of the college. I don't know which college.
yeah.
it
Anyway,
is.
big college. Before we get too off track, big story came out about butt chugging at one of these colleges. Anyway, all it is you drink alcohol through your ass because apparently you get drunk faster.
Yeah, because the inside lining of your large colon absorbs nutrients.
Correct.
Yes, and it doesn't get filtered through your
Liver or anything else, really.
Yeah. So you just
You're basically cutting out all the middlemen.
You're going right to the source, baby.
Yeah. Factory direct asshole drinking.
So yeah, I have heard about it, and apparently there's a feminine version of it as well that works well too.
God. Let's just stop right there.
College education, baby. That's what you learn when you're in college.
Where were you going to school, Randy?
I was.
Randy, it sounds to me like you butt chugged before in your day.
I have never done that before. No, I liked funneling stuff, but I was never a butt chugger.
I went to art school, so everyone was just wearing eyeliner and listening to Sisters of Mercy.
I went to the same school, and I had some experiences there.
Oh yeah, no, I did, and I sat in a computer lab all the time, pretty much for the entire time I was there.
Well, I dated someone. My wife was staying at the dorm, so I was at the dorms a lot. You were probably not
okay,
at
yeah,
the dorms
no, I commuted there. Yeah.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Anyhow, are we doing a podcast?
We are doing a podcast, and it is about colorblind.
Colorblind. Anyway, this is the Game Club, and for those of you joining us for the first time, what we do here on the Game Club is we'll pick a game, usually an indie or retro type title, and we'll play it for a couple of weeks, and then we'll get together and record this podcast where we share our thoughts on the game, kind of in a book club format. It's not intended to be an official full-blown review. We have plenty of those here on eldergeek.com that you can check out if that's what you are looking for. This is, as one YouTube commenter called it, lazy talk with friends. So I think we should, if we could remake the artwork for the show and just have it say "lazy talk with friends," that would be perfect.
Instead of it's like a book club for games.
Yeah, it's just lazy talk with friends.
Yeah.
So this time around we played the game Colorblind, and Phil, why don't you go ahead and give us a little backstory on it? Oh, and just for the uninformed, we do tend to spoil things on this podcast. I don't know what you could possibly spoil about this game,
when the colorblind car runs over its dad, it's really intense. No.
It is very sad. It's a hard.
I'm just trying to get in the habit of putting that spoiler warning at the beginning. Even
well,
though
I guess we could ruin if there was some kind of crazy I don't know, game design thing that happens midway. You know what I mean? Could be be still something to ruin. Doesn't necessarily have to be story.
Right. So if you're the type of person that just doesn't want to know anything about a game, I don't know why you're listening to this in the first place.
Yeah, you should be looking at the time code of this thing and going, no, not for me, no.
So
Right on.
color
In that exact voice.
I keep calling it colorblind, but I mean that's the point. It's a play on words, right? Color.
I think so, yeah.
Right.
Right.
So, color, as it's spelled here, is the I guess that's the French and Canadian way, right? Color. C-O.
Pretty much the non-American English
Non-American
spelling
way of
of
color.
of color, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because I guess in Europe, right?
Yeah.
England, yeah.
Mhm.
All right. So, it was created by Finn Morgan. He's an independent developer from Australia. He worked on the game, I'm sorry. Clearly, I am reading tonight. He worked as a game programmer for about 4 years. His credits include Heroes Over Europe. Do you guys know what that is? I don't know that one.
Sounds
I've
like
heard
a
of that
World War II
before,
name.
but I'm not.
And
familiar.
Dungeon Defenders, I believe I have heard of.
Yeah.
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 Did that as well. And he's been working on Colorblind.
Bind.
I know. He did. He worked as he was working professionally. He was working on Colorblind.
Okay.
He actually created like a very early prototype of it in 2008, and the creation of the game took place over those 4 years. But it was, depending on how busy he was in real life, there were like lulls during development, which is something I can completely understand. There are things that took me like a year that I probably only worked on for a few months. So because he's not an artist, he kept the actual game art to a minimum, and as a result, everything is all vector. It's all vector-based graphics, and that actually, I guess the flip side to that is it kept the game size down to like 20 megs, and half of that is music. So it's like a very tiny game, very tiny 10 meg game, which is kind of cool in an age of these inflated games. So Morgan is kind of waiting to see how Colorblind does, how it sells, before he actually decides to move on as an independent developer or just kind of keep, working in the industry professionally. Not that being an developer is not working professionally, but
Well, yeah, it does. I mean, if from what everything you hear and read, and from Indie Game the movie and what those guys put on the line to make
Right.
these games, it's not something you can bank on to put food on the table.
right.
So I mean, it's understandable.
Yes, exactly. So the whole game was written in C++, and he actually tried very hard to make the game playable for people who are actually color blind. Because the whole game, we didn't really describe the game. We'll get into that in a minute, but the whole game uses colors, and the different colors mean different things. So why don't we go ahead, Steve? Or who wants to? I'll describe the game. So the game, before we get into our thoughts, I'd say it's a puzzle platformer, physics based, and the colors all have different gravity. So say there's like 3 colors on a stage. There's like red boxes, blue boxes, green boxes. Maybe the blue boxes always want to gravitate upwards, or maybe the red boxes always want to gravitate to the left or to the right. Each stage has different rules. It's never always the same. It's never like blue is always up and red is always down. They tell you that there's these little arrows that show which way the gravity's heading, and not only are like obstacles on the stage affected by the color, but so are you. You're like this little car, and you just drive around, and you can kind of hit these gates, and you can turn that color. So say you're driving on the floor, you touch something that's blue, and maybe that'll flip you up to the ceiling, and then you figure it out from there. So that's kind of the whole thing. So with that said, thoughts. Why don't you guys go first, since I just
It's a cool game.
you sound very convinced.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't really know what to say about it. I mean, I played it for a bit, and I got through maybe about a dozen levels. And a lot of the time, I've kind of felt like especially in the early ones, I felt like I was just kind of muddling my way through it. There's some instructions that are given, which one thing I did like a lot was the way that he gives the instructions. What you're supposed to do, if you're watching the video, you'll kind of see the little messages like in the gray area of the level. As you kind of move along, it'll flash messages to kind of tell you what's going on. It's not really hand-holding, but it is informative enough that you can kind of put it together. But at the same time, I kind of felt on some of those early levels, I felt like I could just do anything, and I got through it, and it didn't really even matter. Before we started doing the show and we were just kind of chatting, we had kind of talked about the graphics and stuff, and you mentioned that he wasn't an artist and he kept everything to a kind of a very vector look. It's not a pretty game at all, and I don't count that against it really, because we've always kind of been champions of the gameplay is what counts over graphics, and if it's a fun game and it shouldn't really matter if it's not amazing looking. But, I think it works for what it's supposed to be, which is just kind of like this Atari-ish kind of looking game, is what I took it as from that kind of era. Even though I don't know that was what the intent was. That's what it reminded me of. Past, like I said, I got up to like around 11, 12 levels, and I just kind of started really losing any sort of... I wasn't compelled to keep playing.
Yeah.
I've played plenty of games like this where, I really get into the mechanics of it and I really have a lot of fun, and I guess I don't want to keep using the word compelling, but that's what it does, is it compels me to keep playing it. Whereas with this, I was like, okay, that's cool. It does this now, and now I'm changing gravity and moving myself around and little stuff like that, but, it really didn't grab me to the point where I wanted to just see it all the way through. And I don't really know what to say about that. I'm not saying it's a bad game or anything like that. It just didn't really grab onto me.
I think that's a pretty good point. The fact that it didn't compel you to kind of complete it, and I gotta admit I'm in that same boat too. It starts off okay, but I really think that the biggest hindrance for the game, and I think what is supposed to be part of the mechanics of the game, is the actual car itself. Mm-hmm. Mastering how to control this car is I would say more than 50% of the battle. And for people who are not watching the video but are just listening to the audio version of this, the car itself, it's almost like a skateboard but with overblown wheels. It's not really a car, and it can operate on both upside down and right side up. And it is very floaty, to say the least. Mm-hmm. And the way you jump is you hit the space bar, and it actually inflates your tires, and the force from your tires being inflated is actually what sends you up in the air. But I don't know. Every time you start and every time you stop, the force of the momentum, or the force of your of you suddenly stopping, causes your car to tip forward and to tip backwards. And the mastery of the car alone is, like I said, more than 50% of the puzzles. Mm-hmm. If the game was just about the puzzles and you had a character that you could control flawlessly, like, say, Super Mario or Super Meat Boy, then I probably wouldn't have such an issue with the game, with the longevity of the game. But the problem is the main character that I'm controlling is the bigger part of the puzzle. And while I'm playing it, I feel like I'm playing like Quap 2.0 or Clop 2.0 or whatever it is. And so I think people who actually genuinely find enjoyment out of those kind of challenge-based games will enjoy this, but I personally just don't.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think the physics of the car is what really, I think, ruins the whole game for me personally. I think I've said this before on previous game clubs, but these 2D games, these 2D platform games that have these physics engines or whatever that's going on in them, I always get very frustrated with them because they're never precise, and you can never... There's this one part, for example, you have to jump. You have to make this huge jump. You go up this ledge. I don't know if you did this one, Randy, and it actually says, I think the hint at the bottom of the screen is, go up there and jump, and you can rotate your wheels in midair, and then you inflate them at the last second, and you can make this huge leap. That took me forever. I think I did that go. Yeah, it took me forever, because you're kind of trying to balance the car in the air, and then you're hitting, and I felt like it's one of those things you could never repeat the same way once you did it. You know what I mean? You bring up Mario, I know that if I perform this one jump the same exact way, that I'm going to be successful in that jump every single time. But I feel like in a game like this, where the physics are so just kind of wonky, I can never recreate that same jump the way I did before. And that maybe people like that feeling, but I hate that feeling. I hate like not feeling like I was able to master something.
Right. I think the difference of and kind of what you just said is that in this game it's like you're fighting against the physics.
Right.
Whereas in like the situation you described with Mario, where you know how to make a precise jump, it's like you understand the physics of the game, and you're able to then use them to aid you.
To your advantage.
Right. To your advantage. Right. But in this game, it's kind of like, yeah.
What can't I do is what you're kind of thinking, you know, like how can I make this do what I want it to do based on what I know of it? And I feel like a lot of the game I fudged my way through. Randy, we were talking the one time. There's this one stage, probably around stage 20. It's kind of like a cube. It's probably one of the first difficult stages. And by the way, I think I made it about halfway through the game before I was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. It's like a cube stage, and you can kind of just rotate around the cube. And the goal is kind of just off to the right. Actually, I'm glad I brought this up because it reminded me of something else that bothered me too. And I know I beat this stage, but I know for a fact I only beat this stage because I just kind of fudged it. I was just like, let me just try acting like an idiot here. And I was able to get my car to fly over to the gate. But I know I did it wrong. Like, I know I did not play the stage properly. And I don't know. That kind of just... I guess that's cool that there's multiple ways to get through a stage. But at the same time, I was, like, frustrated enough with the stage that was when I started looking for other options. I don't know. I guess people are into that kind of stuff. People like breaking games, which is cool. I don't know. But it frustrated me here. But speaking of that stage... if you fly off this cube, you just kind of get propelled into space, like, infinitely.
Yeah, I let it go, too.
Yeah, I let it go, too. I was just like, I wonder if it's going to time out or do something. And it didn't, and that made me just kind of think, well, you know, that's kind of, like, just screams to me that it's not, like, a polished product. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the game should know, you went out of bounds, I'm restarting you. As opposed to me, the player, going, oh, okay, I guess I have to hit the restart button now.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not saying, you know, like you die, you know? So, I don't know. It just kind of lacks like polish in
kind of turned into
areas.
You kind of turned into Christopher Walken for a second there with the you just died thing.
You're talking to me all wrong. You use that tone again, and I'm going to stab you with a soldering iron.
You just died.
What a great movie, by the way.
I'm glad you noticed which one I was talking about.
Yeah, Joe Dirt, man. Thought I was the only one that liked that.
You know, honestly, not to go off on a tangent about Joe Dirt, but that is one of the few movies that the more I watch it, the funnier I find it. But
yeah, it's good.
About Colorblind, you know, I think one of the bigger issues that I really found with it, and maybe this was all in my head, but I felt like all of the gravity on every level wasn't the same.
It's not the same, and that bothered me too.
And that sameness is kind of what you need to become a master of the game. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, you need that consistent gravity to become a master of the car and how it flips in the air and everything like that. But without it, it's really hard to do that. So you're kind of learning on the fly on every single stage.
Right. Like, blue should always mean up or down.
Yeah, that was actually what I was going to say next. The colors should always resort to whatever direction of the gravity should be. So, like, that I would understand why he would be limiting himself to these colors, to like blue, red, green, and I think yellow is the other one, or orange or something.
No, I think there's a purple too. A bunch of colors show up. Yeah.
Purple, but still, those colors should always mean a certain direction. So like red should always mean down, blue should always mean right, green should always mean left. But it's not. It changes stage to stage, kind of like A Boy and His Blob. It's funny how it always comes back to that game. But it's funny, like Boy and His Blob in the Wii version, your menu wasn't always the same as to like what jelly beans you were throwing out. Like it was different every time you pull it up. So if he was going to be changing the gravity and changing the directions, you know, every single map, then there would have been no reason for him to not, toss up the different colors too, aside from these simple basic colors. I have no problems with red, green, blue, and purple. You can make some beautiful stuff with it, but he could have been a little bit more adventurous, I think.
You know, maybe if I'm thinking, maybe the purple, I think because there's like those beams, I think maybe like colors cross and they change.
Colors do cross and they do change.
So maybe that was why he didn't make something a constant. I'm not sure.
But
But I don't know. But it seems like the obvious thing is each color should automatically mean a certain direction.
Right.
I mean, and like the bottom of it's not like you go in there and you're like, well, what does blue mean this time? There is a little guide at the bottom that says
blue is
color,
right and
yeah,
all that
there's
other
like
kind of stuff. Yeah.
which I guess was his method of. Well, that wasn't his method of dealing with colorblind people. I think the method of dealing with colorblind people was also like in stages. In certain stages, there's like kind of like these flags, and the flags are flapping in the direction that that color would go or whatever.
Right.
I think that was like his one of his workarounds. But because you can still match. I don't know how a color blind person sees, but I'm assuming you can match those colors that you see to the flags or whatever. But yeah, I agree that the inconsistency between the colors is kind of what the colors mean throws you off.
Yeah, and I will say this. I didn't hate Colorblind in any stretch of the imagination. I do think that it's a solidly built game. You're not going to have any issues with it. And I think that people who are puzzle junkies and who are junkies of this type of gameplay will really like it. I'm just not one of those people.
Yeah, I can see somebody liking it. I can see people enjoying it.
Oh, yeah, but, oh gosh, there was one other thing I kind of wanted to say about it. Shoot.
It's ugly.
Well, the game has one other thing I guess it's worth mentioning. Actually, one thing I did actually really like about the game was I really liked the music a lot, and I can't seem to find anything about the music anywhere. I've done a lot of digging around trying to see if I could find any information about who composed it or if there's a soundtrack available. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Dead Can Dance at times, like early, like mid 80s Dead Can Dance. It kind of reminded me of that, and I was kind of enjoying it. I almost felt like I could just put the game on and let the music play and then go do something else.
Yeah, good music it always helps puzzle games like this.
Yeah, it was kind of relaxing and kind of had a cool vibe to it. So yeah, I was getting into that a bit. The other thing, what I was going to say that I think that should be mentioned about the game is it seems like, and I did not look into all the different modes and things, but it seems to have a lot going on in it. Like it has cooperative stuff in there. It's got a level editor. It's
I feel like
tied into Steamworks in some way.
Yep.
So it's not like. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No,
I was just gonna say, yeah, it's. I'd say that's for the money you get a pretty decent package if you're into it. As far as like you're saying, it's got like some cool features. But I'm sorry, Randy. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I think the level editor will definitely add some longevity for people. There's something very line writer about it. Something very. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There is something very line writer-esque about it, but at the same time, I don't feel like this is the best that he could do with the game. I think that on paper, Colorblind is like a home run. This physics-based game where you're a car and you change the direction of gravity based on colors. That sounds awesome. But the execution is a little bit short, and I can't help but think of like Geometry Wars 1 and 2, whereas like Geometry Wars 1 was good, but Geometry Wars 2 is like one of the best games you can play on Xbox.
Right.
So I think that if he gave this another try, that I think he could really get a fantastic puzzle game out of it. But
yeah, there's definitely some solid ideas in here, and I think that his work with all the physics stuff while still having a couple weird things like you guys mentioned, I still think he did a really nice job with it. And I think that he's got something there that he could build on for sure.
Agreed. Like I said before, I think it's a decent game. It's just not the kind of game that I can sit down and play for hours and hours.
Yeah, it's yeah, I'm in the same exact boat, and unfortunately with this time of year and everything too, it's there's a lot out there competing for our attention, not only in video games, but just this time of year in general. You got holidays coming up, you got TV shows, you got elections, you got all kinds of stuff going on in the world that just if a game's just not compelling, which again there's that word, but then it's going to get drowned out by other things.
But you're actually raising a really good point. This is coming up at a time where the competition is absolutely brutal. If it came out in the middle of the summer, it might have actually done a little bit better. But I mean, it's coming out against Mark of the Ninja. It's coming out against Chivalry. It's coming out against War of the Roses, Borderlands 2, Torchlight 2, Dishonored, XCOM. I mean,
Don't forget Resident Evil 6.
Don't forget Resident Evil 6. I mean, it has stiff competition. But, is any of that competition another puzzle game? No, but puzzle games are, for the most part, good puzzle games are timeless.
And
Tetris and I would throw Super Meat Boy as a puzzle platformer. That definitely has, legs to last it a lifetime as well. So
and this game carries, it's not a budget title. I mean, it's a $10 game. So I mean, compared to a $60 game, I guess you could say that's a budget title. But anymore, when I think of budget titles on PC, it's usually somewhere in the ballpark of like $3 to $6.
Yeah, so, $5 or under. Yep.
Yeah, so at $10, that's not doing it any favors right now, I guess, in terms of...
I can't believe that we're at this point in time where a $10 game is not considered a budget.
I was actually thinking the same thing. Where like $10.
Yeah,
whereas like 5 years ago, if somebody was like, "Oh, the game's only going to be $10 when it comes out," you'd have been ecstatic. But now it's like $10.
Man.
As I said it, I realized the ridiculousness of what I was saying. But it's true though.
There's truth. There is truth to it.
Yeah, especially in this world of Steam sales and everything else, and all the
iPhones. These apps, these dollar apps,
and free to play games, and honestly, seriously, iPhones and dollar apps. That is this game's competition. Our iPhone and dollar app games.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah.
So,
I don't know. It'd be nice if it finds an audience, and he makes his sequel or makes his next game or whatever.
I really do want to see a sequel for this because this. Like I said, on paper, I was jazzed about this game. Really, really excited. But then, finally getting my hands on it, I mean, it was solidly built. There's no stability issues with it. The puzzles are all definitely clever and everything like that. But I just, like Steve was saying, I think Steve nailed it. There's no compelling reason to kind of continue on with the puzzles, unless you were just a puzzle junkie.
Yeah, and there doesn't seem to be any... and I'm not on Steam right now. I'm not logged into Steam, so I can't say that this definitively. But I don't see a demo available for the game either, which I think really would maybe be a good thing to have out there in this day and age. I think it is a good enough game where I think if someone just looked at these screenshots and maybe just read the description, they might not be interested. But if they were actually able to sit down and play maybe through 5 or 6 of the levels, then it might compel them to pay the $10 and get the game.
Yeah,
I could agree with that.
I think that's...
Especially because I do think... I mean, I know we champion the whole... Doesn't matter what it looks like, but... I mean, let's be honest. It's an ugly game. And I think if someone just looks at a screenshot of it, they're like, this game looks like shit. And then that's it. You know what I mean? They don't play it. So if there's no demo... like you said, I think a game like this, you do have to play it. I think to get it,
Yeah, and even watching videos, I don't know really if that would, because you're not experiencing the way it actually controls.
Right.
And I did like one thing I did like about the controls was the ability to like kind of stop on a dime with the car.
Yes.
I thought that was cool, and that had some potential.
Oh,
right. But it was also like you were never moving particularly fast, and a lot of the time you were just kind of floating and bouncing around anyway. So, like, if it was like a game where you were kind of going fast through some of these areas and then stopping on a dime to make and then stopping and then having to do like a precise jump or something like that, I think that would be pretty interesting and maybe a bit more fun. But that's not what this game is. So it is what it is, and I guess I can't really ask it to be something else and be fair. But taking into account all the things like that this guy built this, pretty much in his free time over 4 years while he was, working a day job. It's, we've said this in the earlier episodes of the show, and for people who maybe have started listening later on, and one thing with this show that is important to me is that, especially when dealing with indie games, is that we acknowledge the fact that our hats off to the people that make these games and
dude, totally. If he's making this in his own free time after work and everything like that, I totally applaud that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, even if we don't enjoy a game and whatever, we never come into this with the intention of kind of trashing something because
right. I never want to just exactly.
We certainly respect the work that goes into it. We're all in creative professions and can understand what it takes to put something like this out and put yourself out there. So, and even as a podcaster, you can certainly relate to putting yourself out there and getting negative feedback. So I try to be delicate when I'm saying that I didn't particularly enjoy something. Especially something that's built by one guy, I guess, is my roundabout way of making the point, is when it's one guy who made this on his own in his free time. If this was like a team of 10 people and it was like some indie studio and they put this out, then I would probably feel, a little less bad about just saying, look, I didn't like this, or what, but
Right.
if it had like some numeric budget to it aside from just whatever this guy, had in his disposable income, then that would be different.
I will say this: there were some great, real brain buster puzzles in here, especially when they were just completely gravity based. You were like, all right, which direction is my car going now? If I hit the D key, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I really did enjoy that.
And I'm sure the later puzzles are actually like really well thought out and stuff like that.
Yeah,
too.
you know what? And I will say, to this game's credit, I mean, I've never played. I can't think of another game where I've played puzzles like these. Like, he came up with these. I don't know how I couldn't come up with a puzzle game, Like,
Yeah.
Right.
a lot of times you play puzzle games and they're still kind of like, they're built on this foundation of, fitting things into something or, whatever. But this game is kind of, it's kind of different in that way. I can't really shoehorn these puzzles. They're physics-based, obviously, which we've said, and he had to come up with all this, and that's no small feat to come up with a whole bunch of puzzles. Just, it's not like he could go to some like crossword puzzle book or something like that and be like, all right, I'm gonna take this and kind of adapt it into a game situation and call it Words with Friends, or
Yeah.
But so I give him credit for that as well. While I'm trying to point out positive things and
Cool. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. All right, so I guess that's pretty much sums up our thoughts, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think my final thought on it is great idea, really good execution, but I truly feel that the biggest setback for the game is the car.
Yeah.
If it was,
I would say a good idea. I would say not so great execution, just because I didn't get into it. So.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I'm not gonna use the C word again, but I'll just say that it's interesting, and I think there's some good stuff in there. Definitely a talented dude, but yeah, it just didn't really grab me. But that being said, if you're someone who's way into puzzle games and you want to check out something, I would say, if you can get a demo, or if it comes out in some sort of sale where you
or
can
indie bundle or anything like that.
Exactly, yeah. If it turns up in an indie bundle, then yeah, this is definitely something to check out. And I think it would. I think this game would do phenomenal in an indie bundle. Quite frankly, I think if it turns up in one of them in the next several months, I think it might find new legs.
Holiday sales are not far behind, so
Yeah. Either or.
yeah.
So yeah, that's about it. And I guess we didn't really get any feedback, right? So I guess no one
Nobody
else
played the game.
No one wanted to play it. All right, that's fine. I I guess we should, with some disclosure. Obviously we received codes to play this, so we didn't have to pay for it. But I could kind of see that, like I said earlier, that $10 being a barrier of entry to some people. So sorry you guys. But next week we're going to be playing Super Castlevania IV. This is going to be a little different. So if you're listening to this or watching it on YouTube, or however you're receiving this transmission, we missed a week last week. I wasn't feeling well. Sorry, we didn't do the show. What we've decided to do to make up for that is that we're putting out this episode this week, and then 1 week from now, we're going to be recording our episode for Super Castlevania IV. We want to get that one out in time for Halloween, so we're going to do it early. So if you're listening to this, please send us some feedback for Super Castlevania IV. Head over to our Facebook page and post it on there. You can send it to us via Twitter at eldergeek.com, or you can even send an email to eldergeekgameclub, all one word, all lowercase, at gmail.com. and we will happily read any feedback you leave us on the next episode. And that includes YouTube as well. For all you YouTube folks, feel free to leave some thoughts on Castlevania 4 in the comments, and we'll grab them, read them on the show. So that'll be cool. I'm looking forward to Castlevania 4. I mean, it's funny. It was a year ago we played Symphony of the Night, and and I remember during that show saying I wish we played Castlevania 4, and now
we go.
Now we're playing Castlevania 4. So I guess I gotta man up.
You better
put my money where my mouth is. My mouth where my money is, and play some Castlevania 4.
I before the show, I actually had some confusion, and I actually played a fair amount of Super Castlevania 4, and I was a little shocked at how much muscle memory I had for the game. I was whipping bats that I didn't even know were there. I'm like, why am I hitting the button right now? Oh, there was a bat there. So
nice.
Yeah. I can't wait for that show.
Yeah. So that'll be next week. For all you people listening, by the time you hear this, it'll be in probably like six days or so. Please look forward to it. And iTunes and Zune reviews. If you guys are listening to the show, we would absolutely love it if you would leave us some feedback, either through iTunes or the Zune Marketplace. We're also on Stitcher Radio. You can check us out there. Any ratings, reviews, feedback you can give us on there greatly helps us improve our rank, and hopefully we'll introduce the show to new listeners. And we would appreciate that very, very much. And, of course, you should be heading over to eldergeek.com to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch TV. Lots of great stuff going on. Randy, why don't you tell everybody about the weekend, the Friday Night Horror Fest?
Every Friday this month. Well, pretty much every day that we're streaming, which has pretty much been almost every day this month. In October, we're doing our Friday Night Creature Feature Charity Marathon for Child's Play. And basically we're raising money for Child's Play. Head on over to our Twitch channel. You can actually watch us play any random number of horror games. I think this coming Friday I'm going to be playing old Alan Wake and new Alan Wake, and probably going to be continuing on with my chapters of The Walking Dead, which I have not played The Walking Dead before. My first time playing Walking Dead was on last week's show, and it
cool.
is a fantastic game. But come on out, join us. Even if you don't have any money to give, come on out, join in the chat, spread the word on Facebook, Twitter, or wherever else you might happen to hang out online, and that ought to do it.
Very cool.
Alrighty then. Thank you guys very much for listening to the Outer Geek Game Club. My name is Steve, and once again, thank you, Phil and Randy, for joining me.
No problem.
And we will see you guys back here in 1 week for Super Castlevania 4.